I looked down at the phone, and at first, I thought I was being harassed again by the CDC. And so I saw the 404 area code, that's CDC in Atlanta. I don't know anybody else in the 404 area code except for CDC. And as it popped up, then I thought, okay, I'm getting a harassing phone call from the FOIA office again, because I had received harassing anonymous phone calls from the CDC back in 2005.
And so you recognise there were 404, and what kind of things did the harassing call say?
They said that they would pester me and say, why did I want the information? Why did I want the information via the Freedom of Information Act? What was I going to use the information for? And then I asked them who was making the call. Who are you? And they would refuse to answer the call or state their name. They just said, oh, well, I'm just a part of the CDC. I'm a CDC official. And one CDC official, this happened several times, and one CDC official said, well, if you're not going to tell me why you're making these FOIA requests, then I'm not going to tell you who I am. I said, what are you, 3? Really? So anyhow, when Thompson then called, I just thought it was another one of those harassing phone calls, and I let it ring through, and I thought, okay, well, they'll just leave a voicemail and that will be done with, and that will be fine. But there was no voicemail, and my curiosity got the best of me, and so I called back. With smartphones, you just press a button, you're calling the number, and it turned out that it was Bill Thompson's cell phone, that it wasn't his desk line, it was his cell phone. And I was shocked. I mean, that was the I'm gonna poop my pants moment, okay? That was when I was shocked. And I then left a message for him. I left a voicemail for him and said, this is Brian Hooker. Evidently you called me. I was just calling you back. Is there any way that you can help me? You can reach me at my phone number, 867-4309. No.
What number is that? Someone's going to call that poor number now.
No, that's from
that's
a
a song.
80s song.
Sorry.
867-5309. Okay. So then I emailed Bill Thompson at his CDC address and said, why are you calling me? How can I help you? What's going on? And then he emailed me back, and he said, oh, I'm sorry, I probably frightened you. I know that you've received harassing phone calls from the CDC before, which really tipped me off. Nobody knew that nobody at the CDC, I'd never told Bill Thompson that I received harassing phone calls from the CDC. So how did he know? Yeah. How did he know, that this had gone on? And he then said that it was a wrong number. He said that it was actually, he said, oh, I thought that was a number of the senator from the state of Washington, Senator Patty Murray, and I had just had that number on a scrap of piece of paper, and I was trying to follow up with her on an unrelated issue.
So there we go, lying before we've even started.
Exactly, and so I get this email back, and I emailed him back and said, with all due respect, you're lying. Patty Murray is in Washington, D.C. That would be a 202 area code. Any government official would know, when you're calling D.C., that's a 202 area code. That's not a 509 area code. And beside that fact, her office is in Seattle, which is a 206 area code. There is absolutely no way that you were calling a wrong number. Or that you were calling Patty Murray's office and you got my number by mistake. I said that just didn't happen. And he emailed me back and he said, believe it or not, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to call Patty Murray's office. And so I just let it go. I thought, okay, he's going to lie. Let's see how this plays out. And then I emailed him again and said, I made some type of remark like, I wish that you would do an unflawed study that had an adequate control group, and I forget what I said, that you actually controlled for vaccination status, and that you did a valid study in which your control group was an unvaccinated control. I said, and I went on to say, whenever you have a control group that's vaccinated, you're cheating. Okay, whenever you have a control group that got a vaccine and then an experimental group that somehow got a vaccine early, you're still cheating. That is not a valid study. And so I thought, okay, I probably just burnt my bridge with Bill Thompson because I insulted him, and I insulted the way that CDC did studies. And I get this email back from you, and back from him, and it says, I couldn't agree more. Okay, I wish that the CDC would actually do these studies and in fact, and then he referred me to the studies where he pointed out the fact that thimerosal was causing ticks.
Because and still is, thimerosal is an issue you want to get to the bottom of, isn't it?
Right. It's not even.
We all do, by the way.
It's not even the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more. I mean, when you look at thimerosal and the MMR, that's what we talked about because those are the only two things that CDC has studied. But we're not talking about the vaccine schedule. We're not talking about aluminum. We're not talking about formaldehyde. We're not talking about polysorbate 80. We're not talking about squalene. There are so many other things that CDC has never studied that they just make the blanket statement it's safe because we decree it, and there's no rationale. So
that's true.
So what happened next?
Then we continued to email each other. I believe I asked him, I said, is there a good time that we can actually talk on the phone? It would be interesting to catch up with you. And when we talked on the phone the first time, it was, he had said, you need to wait a month because something major is going to happen in the National Center for Birth Defects and Developmental Disabilities, and I'll be able to give you more information within a month. And somehow that month went by the wayside, and within 3 days of that email, we were talking to each other on the phone.
Now, the first time you spoke on the phone wasn't the first time that you recorded?
No. The first time I spoke, there were many, many phone conversations that occurred before I had ever recorded any content. The first time I talked to him on the phone was November 2013. And I did not record any of the phone conversations until May 2014. So we had 6 months of phone calls that were never recorded.
I felt really bad for you, and this is where I think, I know you don't like me called a hero, I get that 100%, but you are. I'll tell you why. Apart from everything else, I know that didn't sit comfortably with you recording him. I know you didn't want to, you didn't feel right, it didn't feel good. Mm-hmm. And it's against your every value that you have in yourself as a person, and I know that you did it for us. And for that I am so grateful.
Thank you.
For lots of things I'm grateful, but I know I can't imagine being in that situation, and you were heavily pressured by us, I guess. I'm not going to put all on Andy, but and you did it, and look what's happened since you did that.
Sure. Well, I also, it wasn't the first time that recording came up. Andy wasn't the first person that told me.
Good. We're out. It's not our fault then.
No. Oh no, it's not your fault at all. Actually, a pastor at my church, who's a really, really good friend of mine, I started divulging. He was the first person, a good friend of mine.
That makes it easier when it's a pastor.
Yeah, his name's Tim Janae, and he is one of my greatest confidants, and he's a pastor at my church, and he said, we need to figure out a way so that you can record these phone conversations. Okay. And he's actually the person that found me the app. There's this app that's called Tape-A-Call, where you can record phone conversations without other people's permission.
Dr. Hooker, I really believe he wanted you to record them. He wanted to be set free. He wanted to divulge that.
Agree.
That's my opinion.
I agree with you.
I agree.
I agree with you. I think, his response, it was interesting because the first time that we had talked at length on the phone, he asked me if I was recording the conversation, and I could honestly say I wasn't. recording the conversation. But then later on, I did record those 4 conversations, and they were 4 very long conversations. Each one of them was longer than an hour, and I did a lot of recapping so I could get him on tape saying the things that he said.
And there are some sensitive things that collectively, between Kevin Barry's book and Vaxxed, that was decided between everyone that shouldn't be going in.
There were things that never made the light of day.
Because it was the right thing to do.
Vaxxed was extremely sensitive to my requests. And the other group, you can get the actual recorded phone calls at fearlessparent.org.
You can?
Yeah, you can get the
Wow.
full recording. You
I
can
did not know
download
that.
them.
Did you hear that, everybody? Fearlessparent.org, the actual recordings, all of them.
The
with
actual
sensitive bits
recordings,
in.
and they are redacted sensitively. So the information that is not relevant, that has more to do with my personal life, was redacted out of that. And
what about Thompson's personal life? Was that all kept in?
the information regarding Thompson's personal life was taken out as well,
Good.
because there were
There are
times
things that are not. It's not applicable. Okay, so moving
people
on.
don't need to know about his children.
Right.
We agree. We don't
Yes.
like the way they share our information. We wouldn't do that to anybody else.
Exactly.
So, so one thing we need to make very, very clear is it was not taped illegally.
It was taped legally.
It was taped completely legally
Mm-hmm.
without him knowing. So he did not give permission, but it was taped legally. Do you hear that, everyone? Legally.
I consulted with 2 attorneys before I did anything.
Did a great job. Look, people are thanking you so much.
Yes, well done.
Now, what about other whistleblowers? We know they're out there. We've spoken to some who will
Mhm.
not come forward because of their fear, or because they're waiting for some kind of money or a pension, or their husband
Right.
and wife doesn't. I mean, there's every excuse under the sun. I mean, it's
Mhm.
almost we could write them all for them. What are we going to do? How are we going to encourage them to come? Because they could finish this off tomorrow if they all
I
come
don't
out.
know. I troll for whistleblowers from the CDC all the time.
I love it.
I-
You're Mr. Troll Man.
I troll for them. That's right. I am a bigger troll than Dorrit Rice. No, I'm not. Not a bigger troll than Dorrit Rice. Okay, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. Okay, but you know, there is a good thing about having internal editing in your mind.
Yeah.
But I believe that there are other people that are primed to come forward from the CDC, and that I'm not giving up hope that they'll come forward. Maybe I'm not the right person to bring them forward anymore because of what happened with Thompson, and maybe that really makes them afraid. But I would encourage other whistleblowers to come out of the vaccine safety office of the CDC and out of the influenza vaccine division in the CDC, and out of the National Center for Birth Defects and Developmental Disabilities in the CDC. They all know that Paul Thorson and Diana Schendel were having an affair in broad daylight,
Yeah.
and Diana Schendel is an unindicted co-conspirator with Paul Thorson. She probably helped him embezzle the $1 million that he embezzled from the CDC. She left CDC in 2013, and she emigrated to Denmark, where she now is Paul Thorson's lover. I would dare say that their supervisor, Paul Thorson's supervisor and Diana Schendel's supervisor, who's Colleen Boyle, knew what was going on when it went on. She knew as early as 2009 that Paul Thorson was embezzling money, yet the federal indictments didn't come out until 2011. She knew that early.
Why? So here's facts. We've got the film Vaxxed, and we've got pure evidence and facts.
Right.
Why have the police not got involved to investigate this crime?
I believe that when there has been investigations of this crime, that the Department of Justice has stepped in and kiboshed the investigations because they're afraid of what would happen in regarding vaccination rates. They're beholden to the pharmaceutical companies. They're also afraid of what would happen in vaccine court. And the DOJ is the one that represents the government in vaccine court. And so they have a vested interest in the truth not coming out. And so I'm hard pressed to think that Paul Thorson would ever be extradited to the United States.
I mean, we have another whistleblower, which we won't mention, but tells us that when, I'm going to be really careful how I say this, when the whistleblower reported to the police, the FDA, what would you call it over here, that there was this huge crime going on at a certain place.
Right.
They said, okay, we'll investigate, and then they called a certain place and said, just so you know, we're coming in to raid you in 2 days' time at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Unbelievable.
It's so corrupt. It's like huge mafia, corrupt evilness.
Exactly.
It's like what Hillary did.
You know, there is no trust in our government. If people that are trusting in their government are sick, delusional people. You know, if you trust in our government as far as you can slobber, then I pity you. Why, you know, when has our government shown that it has been trustworthy? Okay, it has never. It has over and over and over again broken our trust.
What are we going to do about the 2 candidates that America have got for, I mean, what is going on? How many people are in America? How many people?
300 million.
Right, and
300
you pick
million.
those 2. I'm just saying. Hey guys, come on.
What are we going to do?
Britain's
Well,
pretty bad as well, so I'm not...
That's really, really a good question. I wish I had an answer for that particular question. I
Well, I mean,
don't.
Hillary is a no starter. You cannot have that woman in it. She will kill us all. I'm
Yeah.
going back to England.
You better not leave us.
Can you take me with you?
And I'm
Do
taking
not.
y'all coming with me, or y'all?
Y'all.
No, seriously, Brian, we got a problem.
We have a very, very serious problem, and it's just endemic of the rest of the government. It really, really is corrupt from the top down. And those individuals who believe that it's been corrupt because of one particular party versus the other particular party, they need to go back and look historically at what happened under the Bush administration. They need to go back and look at historically what happened under the Clinton administration and the Obama administration, and you see fraud, deceit, corruption, fraud, deceit, corruption, fraud, deceit, corruption. It is not one party versus the other party. There is, you know, it's very, very difficult to say that one party has the moral higher ground and the other doesn't. Neither one of them does.
Right, absolutely. Agreed.
Now, what are you doing now? What's your life like now? Tell people a day in a life, Brian Hooker's life.
I am going through literally hundreds of thousands of pages of information that I've received via the Freedom of Information Act. And so I just hit the mother lode in terms of FOIA, and I cannot talk about it except for to let people know that that is, you know, one of the reasons why I'm hunkered down is that I am going through all of this information. It is specific to the CDC. It is specific to the autism epidemic. It is specific to vaccine safety. That's all I can really say about it. But there are over 100,000 of pages of PDF files on my computer right now, and I'm going through them all.
Okay, but remember, the golden
Yes.
rule is that you need to talk about. Don't keep things to yourself, otherwise you'll be.
Always talk.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Tell you what, you go up there, I'm going to come up there with you. You're not going up there on your own. And if you go up there, can you tell Jesus to hurry up and get back down here and sort it out?
You got
I'm
it.
gonna get back up
You
there
got
and
it.
get in
No,
myself.
I know the golden rule, and I understand that particular rule, but there I
You're
have.
working with other people. I
I am
understand
working
that.
with other people,
Yeah.
and I have very, very specific reasons for doing what I'm doing, and I will, you know, when it's appropriate to step forward with this information. That will not, you know, I think the information magnifies the fraud in the CDC to a greater extent, but it's nothing new that's like, oh, I can't, you know, there's nothing new to warn the public regarding the safety of any particular vaccine. If that were the case, I mean, if there were new data that needed to come out regarding a specific vaccine or a specific vaccine component, I would be forthcoming with that. I mean, that's the thing I faced with Thompson, and that's why I'm so forever grateful for Andy, because he was the one that said, "It's time, Brian. It's time." You know, with the whole Thompson story.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What do you think? What is it about you that makes people want to divulge this type of sensitive information? And why do you think that they chose you?
Oh, that's a funny question. My good looks and magnetism. Oh wow. I think
Someone saying you're persistent. I think no.
Persistent,
You are on their back.
and in some ways,
And you're clever. Being clever is a good thing.
in some ways, I can present myself in a really non-threatening manner, and so it makes it easier for people to confide in me, because I have an ability to present myself in a less threatening manner, even though the stakes are high. And you know, one of the things that played a big role in the conversations that I had with Bill Thompson was humor. I mean, you know, I wanted to keep him laughing, and you know, when we were talking about specific individuals in the CDC, when I broke the ice and I broke the tension, I felt like he could be a little bit more honest about them, rather than, you know, trying to protect those people who are doing vile, evil things.